This podcast is brought to you by Rebel News. That's right. So if you want to support us, why not do it in a win-win fashion by shopping for yourself? One of my favorite things to do. Head to rebelnewsstore.com to pick the patriotic gear that pleases your heart. And while you're there, use coupon code DREA10 to save while you do.
Are the Liberals going to continue Justin Trudeau's radical gun control agenda? I think so. So does my guest today. I'm Sheila Gunn Reid, and you're watching The Gun Show. You know, I was at Pierre Poilievre's largest political rally in recent Canadian history ever in Edmonton on Monday. 15,000 people showed up to the rally. There was a 2-kilometer walk to get into the venue closer to the start time. Cell phone service crashed because of so many people trying to upload videos of the event all in one place. It was history making. The Boilermakers Union endorsed Poilievre. Stephen Harper was there to introduce Poilievre. Chief Billy Morin of the Enoch Cree First Nation, who is now a candidate for the Conservatives in Edmonton Northwest, introduced Stephen Harper. It was wild. It was energetic. You know, there was Alberta-born Canadian country music star Brett Kissel there to put his toe into politics and also introduce Poilievre. There was a Navy veteran there from World War II. He was at Juno Beach. And Poilievre was saying all the red meat things that Conservatives want to hear. And he also mentioned that he would repeal Justin Trudeau's gun control legislation and his soft on crime, bail, not jail policies, which was greeted by the crowd with thunderous applause. Take a listen.
And that is why I am announcing today that a Canada First Conservative government will repeal the catch and release bail law C-75. There will be jail, not bail.
Now, that's what Canadian gun owners want to hear. For 10 years of Liberal government, we've been targeted for ban after ban after ban. Why? Because it's easier to go after the most law-abiding people in the entire country than actually go after the people who are breaking the law, the bad guys, the guys who are using illegal firearms, either stolen or trafficked into the country to commit crimes against innocent Canadians. And Justin Trudeau's soft on crime policies have these bad guys out on bail where they can commit more crime and then get back out on bail to commit more crime and then get back out on bail and commit more crime. I really wish the Trudeau and now Carney Liberals would treat bad guys, drug traffickers, armed robbers with the same contempt that they treat peaceful, law-abiding Canadian citizens just honking for freedom. They should maybe consider treating them as harshly as they treated the Freedom Convoy. Because what's happening in this country with rising violent crime is indeed, I think, a national emergency that the Liberals just want to ignore because everything the Liberals have done over the last 10 years has made it worse, has made Canada the most violent it has ever been, the most dangerous it has ever been, the most socially decaying that it has ever been. Now, my friend, Tracy Wilson from the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights is joining the show today to talk about the CCFR's efforts to get engaged and get involved in this election the legal way without breaking any campaign finance laws, because you have to change government a lot of times to change bad policy. And that's what the CCFR hopes to do. So we're going to be talking about how they're getting involved in this election period, how Mark Carney's selection of candidates indicates that he will be even worse for the firearms owning community than Justin Trudeau. I know you're thinking, Sheila, how is that even possible? Well, it is. we'll explain, and how it's never good enough for the Liberals. No matter how you try to comply with their gun control legislation, you will never be able to comply, because even if they do, they will outlaw you retroactively. You won't believe that story. So take a listen. Here's my interview I recorded with Tracy just moments ago. So joining me now is my friend Tracy Wilson of the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. And I wanted to have Tracy on to talk about, well, the fact that the CCFR is following all the elections rules and it's making all the right people angry. I also wanted to talk to her about Mark Carney's selection of a prominent candidate and what that means for firearms owners going forward, what it signals about his view of firearms owners. And then I wanted to talk to Tracy, of course, about the crypto. Not the currency, but rather the firearm that was built to be compliant with the Liberals' gun control legislation, and it was still banned very recently. Yeah. So Tracy, thanks so much for coming on the show. First, let's talk about the CCFR's foray into third-party advertising. Everybody seems to be real upset that the CCFR, as a lobby group, is going to be following all the campaign finance regulations to the letter of the law.
Yeah, that's right, Sheila. So this is our third election in a row being third-party political advertisers. You'll remember back in 2019, we drove the Liberal failure bus across the country, and we didn't go door knocking, we went door kicking. Got our infamous interview with Bill Blair where we caught him red-faced lying. And then in 2021, Rod was going through some cancer treatment, so we took a different approach. We made these Liberal failure brochures that sort of looked like Liberal propaganda, totally legal. I went around the GTA and delivered 273,000 of those into the hands of Canadian voters. So this time around, we're doing something different. We're doing a lot of advertising on mainstream media, on gun-friendly media, and then, of course, on social media as well. We're following all the rules. We've been very careful, as always. And yeah, I think right now we're about $400,000 that we've spent on this campaign. And it's sort of twofold. There's two different things we're trying to do. We've got some Carney attack ads that we've got on mainstream media. Those will start rolling out actually today on Chorus, Rogers, and Bell, and social media all over the place. And then we've got a Get Out the Gun Vote campaign that's targeted mostly towards gun owners. You've got, as you know, a lot of casual gun owners who may not see the writing on the wall and or just may be discouraged. And we want to make sure everybody gets out to vote. Bring 4 people with you. We can win this with numbers if we get out there. So we've targeted that campaign on Wild TV and Sportsman Channel Canada, and then, of course, on social media. So, yeah, we've got all these things rolling out, and it seems as though the anti-gun lobbies are very upset that we are following all the rules that Elections Canada has set out for third-party political advertisers.
They do this all the time. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times they do it with government money. You're not doing it with government money. No. You're not, you don't get any funding from the federal Liberals, and why would you? You oppose their gun control agenda. But, the federal government often funds the other side on whatever issue it is from us. I mean, the other side funds their side in these little activist groups. We see this with certain sex activist lobby groups. We see it with the gun control lobby groups. We see it with environmental lobby groups. And then they engage in third-party advertising during an election campaign in favor of the government, doing it with the government's money, and the government doesn't actually have any of its own money. It has yours. So you guys are just doing the grassroots version of this with money that people willingly gave to you to advocate on their behalf. And the other side is just outraged that someone might do the same thing that they are doing.
Yeah, like how dare we follow our mandate and follow the actions that our members and supporters are asking of us. We recognize that another Liberal term, a 4th Liberal term under Mark Carney, pretty clearly spells the end for gun owners. And I'm I'm not being hyperbolic when I
No.
say that. It's true. I mean, there may be some allowance for the odd single shot or the odd single shot shotgun for duck hunting. But other than that, they're going to continue the mantra of death by 1,000 cuts for our community, and they've essentially killed sports shooting. We're one generation away from losing it all. So yeah, to us, this is it. This is for all the marbles. We're not holding back. We're not going to trim our budget and keep some money in the bank. The way I look at it is, if we lose this election and we end up with a Liberal government who's intent on further destroying our community, and we're not in a position to be able to stop that, because of course elections have consequences, then what is the point of even existing? So we're going all out. We are still within our, the limits that Elections Canada sets out for us. We followed every rule. So yeah, they can be mad all they want. We're not going to stop. And in fact, I'd be happy to spend right up to that top of the limit,
Yeah.
which I think is over $600,000.
I believe it is.
Yeah.
I believe it is because my boss, Ezra Levant, started his own
Yes.
third-party advertiser. It's called For Canada. And it's a third-party advertising group that is following the letter of the law. And again, like the CCFR, it's making all the right people angry. Because, here's the thing, too. I think conservatives are just better at being cheeky and edgy and a little bit funny and snarky than the left is, because the left, a lot of times, they're just humorless scolds.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I've seen both conservative and liberal attack ads on TV, on commercials. And I have to say, some of those liberal ones they're definitely targeting a different audience, maybe a much older, kind of boomer type audience. I mean, I'm not far off from being a boomer
Same.
myself. But yeah, I'm right behind you, boomers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. We've always kind of done these big projects, spent a lot of money. This is what we're doing. I'm not satisfied just to be an insurance agent for gun clubs or something
Right.
like that. We want to do activism. We want to do advocacy. And because we're well supported by Canadian gun owners, we're in the perfect position to do this kind of stuff. And Canadian gun owners have never seen anything like it. So yeah, this is it. This is for all the marbles.
Well, and that's the thing, like what did the other side expect you to do?
Yeah.
Like, you're supposed to lobby on behalf of gun owners and advance our agenda, and no better time to do that than during the writ period, when you have a chance to make a change. Now, you sort of talked about the Liberals' radical gun agenda, and now Mark Carney has not actually come out and stated, I think, in any meaningful way about how he feels about the firearms owning community. The closest thing I think I saw to him making a statement about even the outdoors community, he was walking in a suit and very expensive loafers with his wife. I think it was in Stanley Park on a paved trail. Like, how do you do, fellow outdoors people, in his $1,000 shoes? So I think that's that's what outdoors people look like to him.
Yeah. Well, I know there was a question put forward to him at some point asking if he would continue with the Liberals' confiscation program. The Liberals like to call it a buyback program, but let's just call it what it is. It's confiscation program. And he said yes, he would. But the most clear indication of where a Carney Liberal regime would go is by the people he's putting out front. And of course, you and I both know, I know you took some heat on online for this, but we know that Natalie Provost, who is a spokesperson for Police Se Souvient, which is an anti-gun lobby group in Quebec, she was a victim of, a horrific mass shooting in Canada 34 years ago. A very dark day, I think, for all Canadians. But at the same time, that doesn't make you an expert on public safety policy or crime or violence or politics, for that matter. But she has entered the arena with the Liberals. She is polling to win her riding, regardless of who wins the election.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to set the tone for this kind of debate in the House of Commons, because anything you even say about her, I can imagine now that this video will be clipped and put out
Oh, for sure.
by the other side. But anything you even try and say, you are attacking a victim in the eyes of the liberals, the mainstream media, and of course the anti-gun lobby groups. So, to heck with democracy or parliamentary process. I can only imagine what a Polyev government would be up against with her standing in the House of Commons, even if her party loses, but she wins her seat. So, yeah, it's interesting times ahead, but I'm telling you, I am digging in my heels and I am in 100%. They cannot outlast me.
Yeah, no, they can't. And yeah, for me, when I saw that she was basically dropped in as a star candidate there, um, it was an indication that not only would we have Justin Trudeau's gun control policies, but we would have Natalie Provost's gun control policies.
Oh, yes.
And Natalie Provost has been very upfront that she does not think that the majority of the firearms in Canada, if not all of the firearms in Canada, should be outlawed. And, Pauly Soussouvian can come after me all they want. And they can, say that I am against the victims of violent crime. I don't think that, as you said, being a victim of violent crime actually makes you an expert on gun control policy. And I think that Natalie Provost is going after the wrong people. She's making Canadians criminals instead of going after the real criminals. I mean, this is a woman who quit Justin Trudeau's gun grab panel because it wasn't moving fast enough, even though we've outlawed some 2,000 firearms, maybe more than that, and ended the ownership of handguns in this country. So, when she says that Justin Trudeau wasn't radical enough for her, and then she's recruited by Carney to run, I think it's dark times ahead for Canadian firearms owners if this country, and I'm not blaming the West here, loses its collective marbles and rewards the Liberals for 10 years of failure and corruption.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because I'm watching this thing play out. I think we all are. And you've got law enforcement agencies stacking up behind the Conservatives, right? And I mean, look, regardless of how you feel about that particular gun that I own or that particular gun that I own, this is literally the most useless debate. We've had 9 years of Liberal bills and bans, and Canada has never been more violent. The rising crime and violence is at epic levels. So bad that law enforcement, normally I would have something to say about it if law enforcement took a partisan side like this. Normally I'd be like, this isn't appropriate. Law enforcement should just stay in the middle, be non-partisan. But not only are Canadian civilian lives being lost, but so is law enforcement. So at this point, they're what else can they do? They've thrown up their hands. The Liberals are obviously refusing to do anything about the crime, violence, and gun smuggling. In fact, they've passed legislation to make it easier and to soften the sentences for violent criminals. So, I cannot help but think that there is a weird agenda going on here. The more crime and violence we see as a result of Liberal policy, the more guns they ban. And yet it's still never enough for Pauly Soussouvian. And I've commented on their social media and said, okay, where is your line? I mean, I know where my hill is and where the hill that I'm prepared to die on is. Where's the line then? What is okay? They keep saying they don't want to ban all guns and they get upset when we say that. But yet the goalposts consistently move. There's statements from them dating back to the 90s, the early 2000s, where they said that if they could get that, just get that thing, that would be it. They'd be satisfied and done. And yet here we are, 2025, and they're still screaming that they want more guns banned, and they're being successful. They are getting more guns banned, regardless of how hard we try and comply with that law. So it's bad for democracy and it's bad for the country because we have a very long, healthy gun culture in this country where gun owners have, comply with the law. They followed the rules, and it was a social contract we had with the government and law enforcement that if we complied with all this stuff, regardless of how ridiculous it is, they'd leave us alone and we could practice our sport. Well, they've crumpled that up and thrown that deal in the fire. So now what? Now you're at a point where, should the Liberals win, they're going to have to move forward with their confiscation program. Law enforcement doesn't support it. They're lining up behind the Conservatives. So where does that leave this country? And this, like, we want to have a law and order society. That's what Canada's built on. But people are not going to abide by this. So yeah, it's just a really weird predicament that's more than just, hey, I don't want to lose my AR. It's more than
No.
that.
Yeah.
It's a big problem.
Yeah, and for me it's about the mentality of people who would scapegoat the people who are jumping through excessive hoops to just follow the law for the crimes that have been exacerbated, that have escalated, accelerated thanks to Liberal policy. But instead of the Liberals reflecting upon their policy and saying, we might have got that wrong, we might have had lowering those sentences because of systemic racism, probably a bad idea. Handing out fentanyl, probably a bad idea. Not tightening up the border, probably a bad idea. Instead of them saying like, hey, we got this wrong, they continue to focus like a laser beam on the people who are trying to do everything right. Self-reflection be damned.
Yeah, well, and it's, there are a couple policies that the Liberals won't steal from the Conservatives. And that's the idea of reversing all this gun ban stuff and instead focusing on crime and, of course, exposing, foreign tax shelters. So those are two policies that I don't think Mark Carney is going to steal from Pierre Poilievre's policy notebook. So,
Yeah, I can't wait for our Carney future where we're all living in Brookfield sea cans, sea can pods.
Yeah, well, then you won't even need to hunt, right? They'll just provide you with your beans
gruel.
and rice.
Gruel.
Yeah.
Your Brookfield gruel trademark. Now, before I let you go, I just want to I touch on this one last thing. It is proof positive that nothing will ever be enough. And it is the crypto. So a firearm was just very recently banned. And this firearm was manufactured specifically to comply with the Liberals' gun control policy. Tell us about that. And yet it is banned.
Yeah, that's right. So this is the crypto rifle by Crusader Arms. And within C21, you'll remember the last piece of legislation for gun control out of the Liberals was C21. And within C21, there was a forward-looking definition of what an assault-style firearm is, an ASF. This is a made-up, fake Liberal term, but regardless, it exists, so we have to work with it.
Yeah.
So they had made a definition going forward, and it was very specific. So anything made after C21 that was outside of those parameters would be banned. So Crusader Arms got together. They designed... Sorry, I'm still struggling with this 100-day cold here. They specifically designed the crypto to be C21 compliant. It was designed and manufactured after C21 to be completely compliant with C21. And it's interesting because, we had the big gun ban back in May of 2020. But since then, we also had last December, they added 234, I think, models to that gun ban. The crypto escaped that because it's compliant with C21. Then on March 7th, they came forward, Rachel Bendayan did a press conference and announced another 179 models they were adding to the list. And once again, the crypto evaded that ban because it's C21 compliant. However, last week, out of nowhere, the RCMP have changed the classification for that firearm in the FRT without any advance notice, any conversation with anybody. They've been given that power by the Liberal government, and it is now retroactively banned. The problem here is, and there's been some great videos on this. I think Canadian firearms lawyer Ian Runkle did a video explaining that it appears that the crypto may not fall under the amnesty that protects gun owners from criminality between now and whenever the Liberals decide to get it together on these confiscation programs, should they win another term. So what does that mean? You know, there's been a lot of these guns sold into the market because it's like, okay, hey, here's something that we
Right.
can absolutely own. It's C-21 compliant. It's evaded all these bans. It's complied with everything they've asked. And then flick of a switch, nope, it's banned.
Yeah, you're a
So,
criminal. And this is,
yeah,
again, moreover to the point of Canadian firearms owners trying to follow the rules to a fault, it would appear. And
yes.
still, it is never enough. It is absolutely never enough.
No, it'll never be enough. The goalposts constantly move. And that's why I've said before to the Liberals and to Polly Souvian, where's the line? What's okay and what's not okay in your mind? Not that that should take precedence, but they can't define it because the answer is they do. They do want all the guns. It's undeniable because they constantly move those goalposts. So, you know, at the end of the day, our only option here, and it's, I know a lot of left-leaning gun owners who are forced to vote against the Liberals because of this divisive policy. But we have no choice. We have to win this thing with numbers or it's done. It's over. Forget it.
Yep.
You know, and I'm not prepared to lose all that. So my advice to everybody is get out and vote. I know we can't vote our way out of this, but at least we can do what we can do to keep the Liberals out of power and keep this death by 1,000 cuts at bay. So get out and vote, take 4 people with you, and that's it. I mean, there's a lot of other reasons why you should also not vote Liberal, but in particular, this is important. And for those people who don't own guns, if you think, well, who cares? It's just a bunch of guns. We don't really care about all these rednecks and their firearms. Well, if they can come into my home and take things that I've owned safely and without issue for decades, if not generations, and I've done nothing to warrant it, what can they come and take from you?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, I try to
Yeah.
explain it to people who are not firearms owners, but who care about property rights.
Yeah.
Just imagine if your car has been sitting in your driveway doing nothing, and then your car gets stolen by a criminal, the criminal uses it to commit a crime, and then you are no longer considered a safe car owner.
Yeah.
Because somebody stole your vehicle. You're the victim of the crime, and yet you are scapegoated for the crime. That's a lot of what the Liberals use to come after law-abiding firearms owners. Or if one day, you know, somebody uses a black car in the commission of a crime, and then your perfectly safe black pickup truck that's in another province somewhere else, all of a sudden, because it's black, the government has decided to ban it. That's what gun owners live with every single day. So if you don't care about firearms rights, you should care about property rights. And you should care about people being treated fairly under the law, at the very least. And we're just not.
And actual public safety policy. I mean, at the end of the day, regardless of what happens to me and you and our guns, you know, we're moms. I'm a grandma. Like, I want a safer country. This country is going in the wrong direction. And yeah, there's just a lot of reasons why this is horrible policy for Canadians.
Now, tell us, Tracy, how people can get involved in the good work that the CCFR does on behalf of law-abiding Canadians, and I think on behalf of all Canadians, because you want the federal government to focus its policing resources on very real public safety, on the real criminals out there. So how do people get involved? Because it's not just your third-party advertising, which I think is doing incredible work, but also you engage in legal challenges, advocacy, and events to introduce people into this shooting sport. So don't let me explain it. You explain it.
Yeah, well, they call us the gun lobby, but really we're the public safety policy lobby. But yeah, you can find us at ccfr.ca. That's our main website. It is literally a wealth of information. We have a massive YouTube channel with all kinds of informational podcasts, explainer videos, tools for gun owners, quick little videos to explain just things that might be difficult for non-gun owners to understand. A massive YouTube channel. Excuse me. You can also find us every 2 weeks on Wild TV. We've got a national TV show there, CCFR Radio on the air, where Rod and I talk about everything going on. And of course, there's always a mountain of stuff to talk about. and we're on every single social media platform. So follow along, support us if you can. I know these are tough times for families across the country. So if you're not in a position to help financially, that's okay. Take care of your family first. But if you can help, we can use it because we are blowing the bank on this project.
Well, and sharing what you do is always
Yes.
free. You know,
Yeah, it's always free.
that's always free, and it's the best way to spread your message. And just to make sure that one extra person or two extra people see the work that the CCFR is doing on behalf of all Canadians.
Yes.
Tracy, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I sort of wish people could hear our conversations before we hit recording, but then also maybe not.
Well, those would make fun video clips for sure.
Wouldn't they?
Spicy. Yes.
Thanks so much for coming on the show, and I'll be watching very carefully all the hard work that you're doing during this election campaign and after, because I think that's when, honestly, the real work begins, no matter who
yes.
wins.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity. And I always love getting together with you and two girls talking about guns.
Right? What could be better?
Mhm.
Thanks, Tracy. Regular viewers of the show know that I turn over the last segment to you. So if you want to have your say about what Tracy and I talked about today, best way to get in touch with me is to send me an email. My email is real easy, Sheila@rebelnews.com. Put gun show letters in the subject line so I know exactly why you're emailing me, and I just might read your email on air. But if you are watching the show over on YouTube or on Rumble, if you're watching clips of the show, which I do appreciate, one of the best ways to get our attention, but also help us end up higher in the algorithms on both of those platforms, is to leave a comment over there. I do look at those, but it also, as I said, helps us in the algorithm. If our content is more engaged and consumed, then it is also put in front of more people's eyeballs. It becomes more recommended. So if you are watching the free clips, or showing the free clips to your friends, might they become a subscriber one day? Encourage them to leave comments there too, because I go looking over there all the time as well. But today's comment comes to us by way of the email bag. And this is on my show last week, I believe, with my friend Mark Meinke. He is a veteran. He's a podcaster. He was one of the very first people sounding the alarm bells about medical assistance in dying, euthanasia, being offered to Canadian veterans instead of the help that they called Veterans Affairs looking for. In fact, I'm going to recommend to all of my regular viewers right now, Mark's got a great podcast out this week with another whistleblower about veterans being offered MAID. To see episodes of Mark's show, you should be able to find him on any platform. It's operationtraumarecovery.org. It's the Trauma Recovery Podcast, and he helps everybody, but really with a focus on veterans, navigate their trauma and find ways to healing, because it doesn't look the same for everybody. And again, as I said, he's got another veteran on the show this week discussing I think it should be criminal offering of our veterans death instead of the help that they need. And I believe this instance happened, I think, in 2019. So this has been internal, unspoken government policy for a very long time. These veterans are cheaper dead than they are as a file at the Veterans Affairs. So I cannot recommend to you enough to listen to Mark and see and support his show. Share it with whomever you think needs to see it. And I think everybody needs to see it and hear it. Now, Steve writes in on my show with Mark, I was incredibly impressed with your guest and discussion of April 2nd. Probably the most revealing revelation to me was in the fact that conservatives will defend a liberal when they are mistreated by their own, but the liberals will sacrifice their own on the liberal altar of power. And it is true. I mean, look how conservatives rallied around Jody Wilson-Raybould, even though we disagree with her on probably everything, because she was a woman of principle who's being treated unfairly because she didn't want to go along with Justin Trudeau's protection of a corrupt Quebec-based engineering firm called SNC-Lavalin. You know, when Mark Carney told Rosie Barton of the CBC, look inside yourself, Rosie. Instead of just answering the darn question she was answering, conservatives stuck up for Rosie, who has been particularly venomous to conservatives, because what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong, and your personal emotions about that person to whom the wrong is happening should not actually dictate how you react to it. It's an amazing distinction between the right and the left in politics and in the real world. I don't understand how the left can be so soft or egocentric when it comes to matters of open debate. Well, I can tell you, and it's because it's an admission to themselves that they know their ideas will not stand up to rigorous debate and scrutiny. So instead of having the discussion and defending your ideas, you have to shut down the discussion so that you are not forced to defend your ideas. And it even goes one step further, because so many on the left don't want even the other ideas to be spoken of. So silence even the outward expression of the other idea to prevent people from being exposed to other viewpoints, because people might actually like those other viewpoints better. So when a liberal calls for censorship, just know that they are admitting to you and to themselves that even they know their ideas are bad. Just hold that in your heart when a liberal is telling you to shut up and quit asking questions or arrests one of your colleagues because they dared show up to ask some questions. Prime Minister Mark Carney. Steve goes on to say, my cats Misha and Stormy love your show too. Well, I had to kick my little cat Trigger out of the studio today. So I guess I'm appealing to cats across the country for some reason. Steve, your camping neighbor at the Whistle Stop Cafe. Well, that's very nice. Yeah, we show our documentaries at the drive-in at the Whistle Stop from time to time when we have a new documentary out. And last year we were on an RV tour screening our documentaries, and we met Steve down at the Whistle Stop. So you know what? We met a lot of great people at the Whistle Stop, including Chris Scott, the owner there, the renegade owner there, who paid a 3-day penance for reopening his diner during COVID. He spent 3 days in jail, and then the government seized his property, including the gas station, which was ultimately a punishment on the entire community. But I guess the Liberals believe in collective punishment instead of punishing the people responsible, on the theme of gun control, right? Anyway, that's the show for today, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see everybody back here in the same time, in the same place next week. And as always, don't let the government tell you that you've had too much to think.